In Iran, when a couple were shot the other week for holding hands when not being married, the courts congratulated them. Ladies and gentlemen, it does not need you.
Debating if Western values are superior? Douglas Murray, David Aaronovitch and Ibn Warraq think we should proudly say yes. They argue that freedom, democracy and human rights are worth celebrating. On the other side, Tariq Ramadan, William Dalrymple and Charles Glass caution against such bold claims. They believe all cultures have their merits, and asserting one's superiority can be divisive. But it doesn't matter who you are. If you are against Douglas Murray, may your debating career rest in peace.
You don't have to go very far in Britain or the West in general at the moment to find people's unwillingness to assert the superiority of their values. But they know the superiority of their values because they live with the superiority of their values. I talk at a lot of campuses, and I was at one last night in London where a student got up and started protesting because I had said that an Islamist government was of itself a bad thing, which I think it is.
This makes us think, why are some people scared to say their values are good when they clearly help them? Murray's story shows a bigger problem of not wanting to criticize ideas like Islamist rule, even though we believe in things like human rights and democracy. It makes us wonder, how can we talk about our values in a diverse world? Why is it important to talk openly about what we believe? In short, Murray wants us to think about how we see and talk about the values that shape our societies. He pushes us to face uncomfortable truths, so we can really understand each other and move forward together.
Name me one Islamist government state that you would want to live in. And this is a serious question, ladies and gentlemen. It is also a personal question, and one which, if people were honest, they would admit is personal. As a gay man, there's not a country that's run by Muslims which I could live in. One of my best friends is in hiding again tonight, Diane Hirsi Ali, because of what she says, and she'd be killed if she went to any Muslim country. And I think that matters. And I think the way in which it affects our personal lives does matter, and we should not ignore it. We have the great blessing of living.
It's personal for him, especially as a gay man. He's worried about his safety and freedom. He mentions his friend Diane Hassan Ali, who has to hide because she might be killed in a Muslim country for speaking out. Murray believes this matters a lot. He's reminding us how lucky we are to live in a system where we have freedom and safety. It makes us think, if we were in his situation, would we feel safe? Would we feel free to be ourselves?
And we take it for granted, and we spit on it, and we can because we're living in that freedom. But I beg you, ladies and gentlemen, not to pretend that that means that we shouldn't assert the superiority of that system, because that is what it is. It is a superior system. It doesn't, I would stress this, it doesn't have to be violently asserted. Rights and values are not asserted by violence. They are asserted by showing people your rights. They are shown by example. If you do not speak up for your rights, if you do not say that you think that the rights that you enjoy should not be enjoyed by other people, or people with darker skin, or people in other countries, then I submit that you make a great error of judgment.
Murray wants us to speak up for our rights and show by example. He challenges us to think, do we think everyone deserves the same rights, even people who are different from us? It's a time to think about how we defend our freedoms and treat others equally.
Mr. Glass treated us to a textbook example of Western masochism. And I know some people in the hall enjoy that, because some people laughed and clapped when he cited Western civilization and epitomized it by what? World War, Nazism, Abu Ghraib, Guantanamo. Ladies and gentlemen, if you believe that the West should be treated and regarded only as something which is treated by its lowest moments, and believe that all other cultures and all other civilizations should be treated only by their highest moments, you're already putting in an unequal challenge here.
Western societies often focus too much on their own bad parts, like wars and mistakes, instead of their good parts. He asks if it's fair to judge the West only by its worst moments, like World War II or bad military actions. Murray points out that other cultures often get celebrated for their best achievements, not judged by their worst mistakes. This makes us think about whether there's a different rule for judging different cultures.
Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo, I need hardly go without saying, ladies and gentlemen, were not representative of me, were not representative of the West. And the great difference that can't be reiterated enough, the great difference is that Lindy England is in prison. She is in prison and did not speak for the West. She was imprisoned and found guilty in the West.
He points out that she's in prison because she was found guilty by Western courts for what she did. Murray believes her case shows how Western societies take responsibility for wrongdoing. He thinks it's important to remember that individuals like England don't speak for the whole West. What do you think about Murray's idea that everyone should be accountable for their actions, no matter where they come from? Do you agree that England being in prison shows Western countries believe in justice?
But in Iran, when a couple was shot the other week for holding hands when not being married, the courts congratulated them. Ladies and gentlemen, it does not need you to want to assert your morals violently to say that that stinks and we will not be a part of it.
What would we do if we saw something like this happening? Should we stay quiet or speak up against such cruelty? Some people don't have the freedoms we do, and we shouldn't turn away from that reality.
Mr. Ramadan then went on, and I think this is an important thing to talk about, to immigrants. He did exactly the same thing that Mr. Glass did. He treated us as a society as if we were a society that just abuses immigrants, that imprisons them, locks them up. I don't know where he gets that from. I see immigrants all across our streets, many of whom are doing very well. Most people in Britain have welcomed them. There hasn't been mass violence against these immigrants. By and large, they have been welcomed. How does that happen? How would the reverse happen in Saudi Arabia?
It's true. In Britain, many immigrants are doing well and are welcomed by people. It's not fair to say immigrants are abused here. Compare that to Saudi Arabia, where freedoms can be limited. Why do some criticize Western societies while ignoring these differences?
How would the reverse of that happen in any Islamic culture? Why is it that every Jew in the Middle East has had to go to Israel? Why is it that we have made the de facto agreement that if there is to be a Palestinian state, it has to be Judenrein, clear of Jews? Because we treat them by a different standard, ladies and gentlemen, and we know it, and we will not do what we need to do, which is to say this is what works for us.
His point seems to be that Western societies hesitate to challenge such practices, perhaps out of fear of being labelled intolerant or culturally insensitive. What do you think? Is there a double standard at play here? And how should societies address it?
And this is, we believe, what could work for other people. Mr. Ramadan said that we need dialogue. I agree. Everyone agrees we need dialogue. But where does it start? Would it start, for instance, with making a joke, contra Mr. Khomeini, not a very funny man? Or would it start with an article, perhaps? Would it start, perhaps, with a film? It did, a few years ago, with Submission, and Theo van Gogh was killed. Could it start with making a joke, perhaps? A joke in a cartoon? Well, apparently not, because we know that there were burnings and killings and lootings and riotings across the globe in reaction to those cartoons. If you're going to start a dialogue, what could you do that would be smaller than drawing a cartoon?
How can we talk openly if even drawing a cartoon can cause riots? It's a big challenge for freedom of speech. Are we too afraid to speak our minds? How can we start a real dialogue if we're scared of causing offence?
If anyone has an idea, please let me know. But this dialogue, which we keep on being offered, is not reciprocated. And we can have the dialogue here, in the West, tonight. But how many of the countries that will be talked about by the other side could we have the same dialogue in? We get to discuss our failings because we are in the West. We get to analyse our failures because we are here, and I think that matters.
If this freedom exists in other parts of the world, where people might not have the same rights, it makes you think, are ideas like free speech and self-reflection universal, or are they only for some societies? How important is it to balance respecting different cultures with standing up for human rights everywhere? Well, that's it for today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on the latest updates. And if you haven't already, join our channel membership for exclusive content and perks. Share your thoughts with us on this in the comments section. Until next time, stay tuned.